the site of the discharge.
Okay.
Okay. I understand from the presentation, I believe that she said September, we're going to see that jackup rig getting started.
All right. So I thought what I would do, the meeting is running. It's going to be a really long meeting in Panama City Beach. If you don't know what's happening, they are going to dig up the Gulf of Mexico, and they're going to run a couple of gigantic underground pipes. They got to dig up the rocks under the Gulf and put these gigantic pipes under the Gulf of Mexico and Panama City Beach. And they're going to take the rainwater and the stormwater from upland where St. Joe is developing, and they're going to flow it down, and then they're going to pump it into the Gulf of Mexico about 1,000 feet, maybe 1,500 feet out. They say it's going to help with stormwater and flooding. They say the governor loves the idea. By the way, I think Governor DeSantis is the best governor in Florida. They say Governor DeSantis gave him $21 million for the project. That's what they were bragging about today. He loves it. I promise you, Governor DeSantis does not know. Or I take it back. He might know. He might know what the city had to do on its application in order to get the federal funding. You'll know too at some point. So the city says that all this funding is going to build this project. The consultants they hired for $1 million say it will create a dead zone in the Gulf. And they say that we are the guinea pig of the Gulf because they've never done this before in the Gulf. Right? There's a lot of pressure coming from the top and from the bottom. Then we've got hurricane concerns. We've got other environmental concerns, but they're paying a boatload of money to get approvals. So people are talking right now. I left the meeting so that I could show this to you, and I'm just going to turn it on. I'm just going to sit here. I might even eat some of my my olives, if you don't mind. While have you had these before? I love these things. Anyway, we'll just kind of sit together and watch the meeting. So let's go to it right now. Here they are. And citizens are talking. They're not happy about all the taxes and the damage that these thieves masquerading as public officials are going to do to the beach. So I'm just going to turn on the meeting, mute my microphone on purpose this time, and we'll watch it together. You may see me get up and down. You may see me eat. You may see me do other things that you don't normally see because we're just hanging out.
Sally. So what I'm saying is we have these great erosion problems as well. We are on a sand dune. We're all living on a sand dune. We have these erosion problems. Sand will let that water go right through. It's always protected us. It's always protected this beach. And for the woman who said everything that's being paved over, agreed. I think if you guys got that lake moving a little bit more in all these areas, however you plan to use it, however you plan to do this, please make sure that lake lives and breathes. It lives and it breathes. It has animals, it has residents. It is a local lake. Did you guys know that that lake is yours? Low Water Lake is your lake too. It's not just my lake because I'm a resident. It is a public lake. It is a public lake with a public boat ramp that anybody can come to. You can go fishing, Mr. McConnell. You can go fishing. Come to our lake. Come see us. Get in there. You know, right now it's really gross. We've got a lot of hydrilla in there. We've got a lot of spatter dock. Help us clean up this muck. If you're going to use the lake, you're going to clean the lake, and I'll make dang sure of that.
Does anybody else have any public comments on these items? Yes, ma'am.
I'm Mary Kay Casares, and I live in Seclusion Drive, which is a part of Bidawee. I sent you an email with most of my concerns, but I want to further add that when I had my house built in 1994, I never had lane water anywhere. And then we had Opal, still no water. Even on the sides of Back Beach Road, no water. This has been happening with all the development. Water has nowhere to go. Now, when we get a storm, just like our little storm we had yesterday, my neighbors next to me goes up the first whole section of their driveway. They're a little bit lower than me. Now, we're 36 foot above sea level, and it's coming down the road. It's laying. And that neighborhood never used to have water laying anywhere. We need to just put a halt on developing and start focusing on infrastructure. Because I can see in front of my house where the road is sinking. Things are sinking because the infrastructure is not being addressed. Milk Hole Road in Bidawee, that whole road's sinking. You come out and you put asphalt on it, but it's still going to sink. Nautilus, you see that by the school, it's sinking. We need to address what's under and stop building more up here. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, says the mayor. They don't give a flip. Look at them. The contempt they
Anybody
have.
else who wishes to speak on public comment?
Anybody else wishes to speak on public comments?
Seeing none, we'll close that portion of the meeting. Mr. Lawson, can you?
Not a single, they didn't answer a single concern.
Prepared for us to.
They didn't. Oh, okay. Mr. Lawson, this is the attorney that one time squared off on me. Who remembers this? I was sitting where he's sitting, and this dude right here squared off on me. I stood up in the meeting. I said, don't yell at me in the meeting like this. And Mike Thomas said, sit down, boy. I said, you need to tell him to sit down as well. This guy right here did this to me. Who remembers that? I'll have to post it. It was really incredible.
Again, thank you.
Incredible.
I took notes.
But he's going to answer the questions. He's their lackey attorney. This guy's the worst. Oh my God. He has so much contempt for the people. Watch, listen to his tone.
Address what I view as substantive points that they help both the people that discuss the points and as well the governing body.
By the way, he told me to follow him out of the meeting, which I did.
I'm going to do them in order.
And then he apologized to me. To his credit, he apologized in front of everybody.
If I can flow through these.
But I cannot tell you the arrogance of this guy right here.
That's okay. First of all, I told Lee Sullivan that I'll never be able to get the picture out of my mind of him standing on a police car cocking a shotgun and telling the Hells Angels they needed to move out of the Wayside Park. He asked if this is the best method. My answer to you is it is, because the method you've been using is based upon trying to measure pervious area with imperfect data. And here's what everybody told you today is impervious area constantly changes. And trying to measure it with imperfect data is a real hard thing to do. The property appraiser keeps some data, but certainly not all. What I'm sure Kelly can confirm is there's a high level of frustration with the inability to use a pervious-impervious model. The other thing about the pervious-impervious model is it really doesn't include everybody, and changing to the more simplified approach allows you to treat all properties more proportionally, which is one of the axioms that the Supreme Court has asked communities to use when they do assessments. And the data that you're using in this particular instance is highly refined. The property appraiser is required to supply the data that is being used here, but you're using it for an entirely different purpose. And that's the beauty of the concept. You have better data. Lee asked, why more money? The answer is simple. I've heard it here this morning. You don't have enough money to solve all the problems. The only thing I can tell you and your constituents is when you take the money by assessment, it has to be spent on assessment. The biggest problem I heard this morning was we have lots of problems in your city that need to have money freed up out of a general fund that you can spend on.
Do you know how much money they've got grants? They brag about the governor has $21 million they said the governor gave him $21 million. It's never enough money for these guys because this is going to be a slush fund. This will not solve the problems. This is to help St. Joe Development Upland and to line their pockets. And they're going to get caught. I predict that this project will land people in prison. Don't forget, what's the date? August 26, 2021? Do you know that August 27, 2020, exactly a year ago, is when the city was subpoenaed by the FBI for public corruptions, for questions I had been asking for the previous 5 years. They were subpoenaed a year ago. They are all under investigation. I mean, I say keep doing it. Keep doing all of it. And let the dragnet grow.
Exemptions in stormwater only, not with fire, not with the CRA. And there's an equal protection argument there. At the same time, you can do exemptions, but you must pay for them out of, guess what? The general fund. You can't pay for the exception on the backs of the other assessment payers. It's a locked box in that sense. What, after discussion with staff, the suggestion was to limit the exemptions and then have them phase out over 12 years so that anybody getting the exemption, however you decide to do it, when they sold the property, the next guy wouldn't be exempt. And that's a way to phase out. It's called grandfathering, and the law will allow that as a way to solve tough problems. I will tell you in a few moments that that's a complete business decision on your part. I don't care. I'm a mechanic. I can show you how to structure it along with Amy so that if you do give an exemption, that it's done right, and someone can't say, I was cheated because you gave so-and-so an exemption and didn't give me one. That's my job. If you all want to fund that, there's a price to it. It'll be a couple $100,000 a year. If you do it over the 12-year period, it'll slowly go away. We can talk about that in a few minutes. That's in response to what Mr. Sullivan asked. I'm glad that Mr. Bailey gave you the photos for the records, but he is a non-disclosure case, as I mentioned earlier. He has my sympathy, and these are the difficult problems of governance. Ken Nelson, a fine city commissioner, saw what happened years ago. I disagree with him. You are a barrier island from a geological standpoint, period. But that's okay. It is what it is. It's Panama City Beach. You got water on one side and water on the other. Over time, even the low water issue even demonstrates that the water breaks. However, the reality is the information in the notices had to be supplied. I'll take full responsibility. I shared it with staff. We do our best, but the legislature forces us to put certain information out there. And it was not intended to be a threat. It was, if you required the word, the straightforward choices are. If there were more than those choices, they would have been placed in that as well. So lastly, I would say that Ken can remember Doug Sale's comments however he wishes, but I worked with Doug Sale for many, many years. He's a class act. You know what his opportunities he saw for this city was, if we have an assessment, it's a more fair way to allow people to be charged for the benefits of their property. And that is absolutely clear. And it's absolutely clear with your fire and your CRA. And it is proportional. It's not a tax. People say, oh, it's a tax. It's not an ad valorem tax. It's a value tax. It uses value as a component. It uses value as a component. And the Florida Supreme Court has specifically articulated that that is appropriate in the Boca Raton case, also in the Naples v. Moon case. If you use an element of value, it is specifically supported. And here you use just an element of value, which is the refined information the property appraiser must generate every year as a matter of law called just value, and the refined data point that's called land value, and one value which has to be certified to the Florida Department of Revenue, and the other which has to be certified to the Department of Revenue independently by these property appraisers every year. If you subtract one from the other, you have a certified result that is highly refined information upon which to apply either the methodology that you validated with the fire assessment and with the CRA, using those types of concepts. And here you're using it with stormwater based upon what's called relative improvement value to proportion the charges for a part of the variable costs of a program. And what you're doing here, again, I offered up the report from Dr. Bites and Dr. Fletcher. That is a well-known economic approach where you measure the demand by goods and services, public goods and services, by people who vote with their feet. And they vote with their feet by the property appraiser keeping track of all this economic data. And it is a very good way to do it. I will admit it has an element of value. I will admit it's called a special assessment. You can call it a tax, you can call it whatever you want to. It's not a pure value tax like an ad valorem tax is. I have to tell you that for the record. The difference between a tax is that it must be collected uniformly, and then it can be spent however the public body chooses for a public purpose. A non-ad valorem or special assessment must be collected using a determination that it benefits property and that it's fair and reasonably apportioned, and it must be segregated and used for the essential service or capital improvement. Therein lies the distinction for the record. I'm getting through it. It'll go quicker. Miss Rachel was the fifth speaker. She also has a non-disclosure problem. Again, you can't solve that with necessarily the stormwater assessment, but the monies that you do generate from the stormwater assessment take pressure off your general fund so that you can, on case-by-case basis, look at the most severe problems. And that's what cities and counties do when they have to deal with severe problems. And that's why you need a general fund. Bruce, a Palmetto Trace resident, and I know Palmetto Trace, the Palmetto Trace problem is because what St. Joe did was took a parcel that was large when we worked to develop your redevelopment plan, and you entered into a series of interlocal agreements with Bay County that said you would do certain things, one of which was you would impose an assessment in the Front Beach Road redevelopment area to help support these costs of administration and some capital, which is what you did a few years back. That was fulfilling your obligation under a plan that I also helped you validate 20 years ago. So you're fulfilling your obligation. Doug Sale sat at the table years ago and said, let's make the whole city a CRA after we did Pier Park. And I had a great discussion with Doug. We used to yell and scream at each other. We're good friends. I said, you do not want to do that. You want to identify the road network that you're going to serve, which is what the program was, by a matrix. So we had a consultant go out with 5 criteria and say, do the parcels around this area have this relationship to the road system? Palmetto Trace was one of those parcels. To take them out of the process now runs the risk of unfurling that program. And
Hey, please.
we recommended that not be the case, and the city council 2 years ago declined to do that. Now, I can only give you facts. That's a fact. As far as large development not doing their fair share, I have to also explain to you that I know you have building codes, and your building codes change from time to time. People who build now experience more difficult barriers to development than they did 20 and 30 years ago. It's just the way it works in Florida. And what happens in the community as it builds out, particularly with stormwater runoff that was easily absorbed before when it improperly ran off someone's property, isn't so easily absorbed when you get larger and larger. And now we run into the problem of private property rights, because the next guy up that buys land wants to develop his property, and you, with police powers, say, hey, you got to do more and more to deal with your stormwater. This particular assessment program charges new development more robustly than your other one ever would have, and it allows for it to be done year after year so everybody participates in a proportionate way. If you did impact fees, you'd have to give credits for the assessments. Again, my advice is not to do that. You're better to have a strong program that's tied to a dynamic database that changes over time to create equity. The next point I have here is the comment made about indexing. A few years ago, you instructed that we would use an indexing feature. That indexing feature has now come in place. You set the time frame to do it. It begins this year. The index you chose was chosen from general law in Florida statutes. It is the same general law process that the Florida legislature has put in statutes for certain types of fire districts. And what it says is that you set a maximum rate, and then from year to year, you don't look at a cost of living. Social Security cost of living went up a little over 6% this year, big jump. But instead, under the Florida statute that we copied, we used the average growth in personal income per capita in Florida over the last 5 years. That's a mouthful. What does that mean? It means as personal income grows, the index grows. If personal income doesn't grow, a depression, the index doesn't grow. Cost of living will go up in a depression. So you see why we chose that method. At the same time, it's important to have indexing because the value of a dollar and what your dollar can purchase in the form of services and goods, public services and goods for whatever program you're underwriting is diminished over time. That's the concept of inflation. Here we have false inflation that's not really economically driven. We've got false inflation.
This is one of the attorneys that the city uses, and I have not had good experiences with him at all. All right. But anyway, I just figured we'd pop in live now that I left. You're going to see what I'm doing. I'm sitting here. I'm eating a little salmon is what I'm eating. I'm drinking a little tea. All right. That's what makes me the man I am. You want to know what kind of tea it is? That's the wrong one. It's not. No wonder I had to leave early. This is it's green tea with turmeric, is what it is. That's why I'm here. Anyway, I figured this lawyer's slimy is what I'm trying to say. So I'll be here just sort of eating with you, hanging out is all.
Apply for the grant. Let's see if we can't get it. Let's try harder. But the bottom line, a lot of times getting this infrastructure money, the federal government ties it to matching grants so they leverage those dollars. It's not a free ride. 9 out of 15, here we go. 10, 11, these were policy comments. The comment that the CRA should pay, the CRA money cannot be used outside of Front Beach Road Community Redevelopment Area. I already told you why we limited the area. Just one second. The fact that you have a lot of flooding, I think Kelly can show you this, is a function of one of the reasons why you're doing the Front Beach Road assessment area. A lot of people seem to forget this fact. I always find it interesting. Your city wasn't voted upon. No one said, hey, let's have Panama City Beach. Yeah, it was a little small city along 5 others. Mallory Horn in the legislature, for who knows what reason, decided that 5 cities should be jammed together in the 1970s. They did it the last moment of the legislature. This is a city that was born with absolutely no planning, foisted upon a community because the legislature got tired of hearing about the warring amongst 5 little cities. Am I right?
4 cities.
4 cities, yeah. But this wasn't some great public interest activity. It's something that happened to you all, which I think is the reason why I think you get more attention from time to time. So I would rebut the suggestion that the flooding is all some activity of poor planning. I think it took you 3 decades before you got to the point where you all could even come up for air and say, how do we do this? And that's when I met Mr. Sale. And I will tell you that your predecessors in the last 20 or 30 years have done yeoman's work, because I think a lot of people that come here, just like Naples, I lived in Naples for many years, it was nothing. I mean, nothing. And it blossomed. I told you in my past, I was on planning commission. I sat on a commission that approved like 250,000 units in my 20s. When I came here to work with Doug, I told him, I said, I have seen this movie before. You've got a lot of quality in development, but you've got a mix of good and bad. Lastly, the fellow that said, let's do the percentages by risk, high flood, middle, and low. What I've learned about stormwater is that's a common discussion. Was years ago in Sarasota when I worked on some of their stuff. Here's what I learned about stormwater. This is why the impervious system has a lot of sense. If I live up on a hill and it rains on my house, the water's got to go somewhere, but it's not going to flood me because I live on a hill. It's going to run on down to the guy at the bottom of the hill. Why should I pay less? Because I picked a house on a hill, or I bought a house where someone didn't disclose that every time it rained, it was terrible and they were selling the house during dry season. This methodology is based upon voting with your feet. It's economic in nature. Dr. Beitch's plan articulates that. I think I've done a fair job of answering questions, Mayor. You have before you 4 things.
This guy pats himself on the back more than anybody I ever saw in my life.
The ordinance is probably the least controversial, I think. It's simply procedural. I would recommend you take that up first, and then we move to fire, CRA, nuisance abatement, and then have a broader discussion about the actual stormwater, if that would please the commission.
Absolutely. I would like Ms. Jenkins to come up for the record.
Sure.
And answer the questions that Mr. Todd had proposed. I know he has stepped out, but I'd still like to make sure those are on the record for us, please, ma'am. His questions were plan for water monitoring at the site of discharge and contract for oil spill mitigation.
Yes. And for you all, I mean, we're in the early stages of this. So this is a first step for us. So right now, there's no set monitoring plan. But as we move forward, we can provide that for him as far as water quality.
Ms. Jenkins, part of the project will include that, though.
That's what I'm anticipating. I mean, we have so many different agencies for permitting and requirements.
This is Kelly Jenkins. She is the city's chief engineer. Okay. And this, she's being credited with bringing this to the council. She wanted to do it as far back as 2016, Kelly Jenkins. So this is kind of her baby. But I quite frankly think that she was put up to it. Yeah, there's more to that story, but I'm not going to get into it right now.
The DEP permit that they have to follow. So they're following all these requirements. We don't necessarily have a contract saying would if, but that's for them to uphold their equipment.
Okay.
And
Thank you.
I think you
Yes.
did ask about the tides
Yes.
as well. And actually our consultant said, we're in a better place for the tides. The 5.5 makes it harder to get the stormwater out. The 1.5, you have more gravity to get it out there. So it actually works better for us.
Perfect.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes. So at this time, we will move forward with item number 4. Then we'll probably take another quick.
Point of order.
Yes, sir.
Officer, did you get a chance for numbers? 27 people have remained, 15 spoke. I do want to impress upon the record that we will supply to the clerk the affidavit of publication in the Herald and the affidavit of mailing from the people that did the mailing. The notices were mailed to just under 20,000 property owners that with addresses derived from the property appraiser's roll as required by law.
Thank you, sir.
I have a quick question for Mark or Amy, us voting.
Romy is in the house. Romy, I see you.
That we are increasing the existing amount of money the city currently collects for stormwater. Is that correct?
Correct. 4 is just procedural.
Proceed.
Methodology.
Okay.
Yep, the methodology, the change.
Gotcha.
So this time we'll open up board discussion for item number 4 only.
Would you like me to
Please.
ordinance by title?
Yes, go ahead. Do it.
An ordinance relating to the provision and funding of stormwater management-related capital, services, facilities, or programs in the city of Panama City Beach, Florida, authorizing the imposition and collection of stormwater management assessments against property throughout the city, providing certain definitions, establishing the procedures for imposing and collecting stormwater management assessments, providing for the establishment and notice of maximum rates, providing that stormwater management assessments constitute a lien on assessed property equal in rank and dignity with the liens of all state, county, district, or municipal taxes and assessments, and are superior in dignity to all other prior liens, mortgages, titles, and claims, authorizing the issuance of obligations secured by assessments, providing for various rights and remedies of the holders of such obligations, providing that such obligations will not create a general debt or obligation of the city, providing for severability, and providing an effective date.
Thank you. This item's up for board.
That's Amy Whiteout Myers. She's the one who submitted the document to the FBI that altered the plat language. Okay. That's Amy Whiteout Myers. She's a city attorney. Sitting next to her is Cole Son Davis. That's who they are.
This is a new stormwater assessment. We have one on the books since 2006. This is changing the methodology of our current assessment process.
And your process, yes. It's updating.
This item number 4 is for changing the methodology.
That's correct.
Yes.
We get further into.
Yeah, this has no bearing on what we ever, or what we're going to decide as far as where that fund is going to
It's
reside.
going to increase or stay flat,
Correct.
or whatever.
Right.
This ordinance does not speak to the methodology. It speaks to the process of
Or the
adopting
process.
Right.
an assessment.
Okay.
How you do it.
I would just like to say, I don't like the impervious method that we've used. I thought initially it was very hard to manage. I think the words I think you used were more simplified approach. Like if you live in Gulf Highlands across the street, right now everybody's got a different amount, and this would make everybody have basically the same amount. But so I'm for changing the method to a more simplified method.
This will facilitate that.
And
The
that's
actual
what
method
this
will come in the resolution.
Number 4 will do,
Okay.
but
Right. Nope. That comes later. Right.
Never forget the men right here and women who are changing the beach, who are doing this. Here's the vote.
Councilman German.
Yes, ma'am.
Councilman Castro.
yes, ma'am.
Councilman Chester.
Yes, ma'am.
Mayor Shelton.
Yes, ma'am. At this time, we're going to take another 5-minute recess.
All right. So I just decided that we would kind of watch the meeting together. It's going to be a long, long meeting. These are unusual. Okay. They're calling special meetings. They're having these unbelievably long meetings because they're going to dig up the Gulf, and they're going to put gigantic pipes underneath the Gulf in Panama City Beach, and they're going to pump rainwater and stormwater from the upland St. Joe developments into the Gulf of Mexico. The consultants say it will cause a dead zone. It's never been done before in a Gulf. They've got to dig up the rocks and put it under there, and there's a lot of ifs and questions about it. Their own consultants say that. But these guys here are the ones who have already decided they're going to do it. They've already given nearly $2 million to consultants. One of them is Capitol Hill Consulting in Washington, D.C. That's Steve Sutherland, former congressman. They say our federal consultant is really good and has our best interests at heart. Can you imagine being these people and being the ones who will go down in history as the, you want to see what it looks like? Let me show you. Let's see if I can do this. All right, let me just try this since it's just being you and I'm sitting here sipping on my tea and waiting for them to come back. Let's see if I can do this. I'll show you what it looks like. These are the pictures they showed today. Oh boy, share. Okay. These are the, oh no, I don't want to stop that screen. Oh, I need to open up another tab. See, I'm kind of learning as we go along. If you don't mind lingering around. I mean, we're just all kind of waiting around in the lobby. I'm not going to believe the picture I'm about to show you. They showed this today, and I posted it on this page. This is what you're going to be seeing in the Gulf of Mexico real soon. Unbelievable. Yeah, I got it right here. There it is. I will show this to you now. It's called the jack-up barge. I'm not kidding you. It's called the jack-up barge. This is what you're going to see in the Gulf of Mexico. All right. I do have to stop that screen, huh? Oh, I know what to do. All right, there we go. I can't believe what I'm going to show you right now. All right, look at this. I showed you the wrong one. That one? I did it again. Hold on. Yeah, we don't have anything else to do anyway, so hang tight. This is what they're going to make the Gulf look like. Ah, there it is. It took me 3 times. I hit the same one over and over. Look at that. That's called the jack-up barge. And they bragged about it today. See, in God we trust. There is Mayor Mark Money Mover Sheldon. This is part of the big slush fund scheme. Since he drained the TDC already, he gets $1 million a year in TDC money to run concerts that keep getting canceled. Oh, yeah, you don't want to be him. Trust me. The other guy there is Vice Mayor Jeff Mini Money Mover McConnell. Am I on? Did I fix my volume? Yeah. All right. So that there is the drill rig on the jack-up barge. They're going to jack up the Gulf of Mexico, is why it's called the jack-up barge. And these are the guys who will go down in infamy as the ones who did it. I mean, is that some stuff or what? All right, let's see what you're saying. Good question, Miss Sarah. Yeah. Yeah, she's the one she's the public relations lady. So she's got to deal with the big fallout that's taking place. Look at the jack-up barge. They're going to jack up the Gulf. You want to know the email? Hey, by the way, if you want to submit, the best thing we can do, and I'm telling you because I've been to court against them, 3-4 times. And I've heard, I know what matters as far as evidence goes. I know what the courts look at. And one of the things they look at, the city likes to say, well, we didn't get very many emails in opposition. So clearly people, trust us. But when they get a bunch of emails that say no, yeah, they got to explain that. So and you don't just have to be a resident, this affects you. You pay the sales tax when you buy something in Panama City Beach. You're a stakeholder. They're going to mess up the ecology from upland in the St. Joe developments where they're going to take the stormwater, bring it down and pump it into the Gulf of Mexico. That's what the jack-up barge is for, to jack up the Gulf so they can put the underground pipes in. This is their slush fund. God, they're such thieves. So if you want to send an email, here is where you send it to voice your opinion. And it matters more than you know. They have to track these. Send it to debbie.ward@pcbfl.gov. There it is. I'm going to leave that up to debbie.ward@pcbfl.gov. And just voice your opinion about whether or not you want the stormwater outfall. Or do you want retention ponds like we're supposed to have that keeps the water upland where it is supposed to be? Because if they take the rainwater and they dump all that water into the Gulf, now you've got upland, you've got less rainwater that affects the wildlife. It creates a void of water. And so it gets filled up with salt water. They have what's called saltwater intrusion, which ruins your well water. It affects wildlife. It's devastating. But they're paying consultants a hell of a lot of money to say otherwise. Raise your hand if you believe that these consultants tell the truth, or do you think that they say what they're paid to say? It's $1 million. That's my vote. Dishonest so-and-sos. Dishonest so-and-sos. All right, back to your comments. Well, I'd like to see that stuff, Carla, but, I'm only one guy hanging on, trying to make ends meet, trying to keep the office going, trying to do everything, So I'd love to see people get involved. Yeah, he's always pretty happy with himself, huh? That's right. David, you are on it, man. John, they're busy lining their pockets. You know how it works. All right. So they're on break right now, and they'll be coming back out soon. I'll check in with him here in just a second. Yes, they say they'll be treating the stormwater before they put it out there, Julie. But even let's say they do treat it, right? This is they're acting as though when it rains right by the, here they come back, right by the water, it just goes into the Gulf. They're saying we're going to treat it now before it goes into the Gulf. But what they're not telling you is they're going to take a bunch more water from upland and treat it. And they're going to put so much fresh water into the Gulf. And Kelly Jenkins earlier, the chief engineer, she said that the salt water will kill some of the bacteria. So don't worry about it. It's going to be a little bit past where you're swimming anyway, right? They're not completely unreasonable. They're not going to dump it all where you're swimming, right? Where your kids are playing. They're going to run it underground, and it's going to be just past you. And they're going to make sure it doesn't come back in toward you. But if any of it does, the salt water, she says, should kill some of the bacteria. It's what she said today at the meeting. They are all liars. I can tell you that, Julie. And it's, I don't say that happily. I'm extremely frustrated, but today was the first day that I saw so many people there. The lobby was overflowed. There were more people there than I've ever seen. And the citizens are giving them hell today. Now, they don't care, but it will matter when they go to court and tons of residents say no, and they do it anyway. It will matter. There's the email, debbie.ward@pcbfl.gov. I highly recommend you just shoot an email and express your opinion about the stormwater outfall project. Do you want it or not? How about the stormwater taxes and assessments? Do you want it or not? Or would you prefer they use what they should be using, and that it's retention ponds? Retention ponds. St. Joe doesn't want to waste their land on retention ponds. They have more asphalt to build and developments to get to. Yeah. All right. Let me get you back to the meeting. All right. Oh boy, they got people talking here, so let's get back to them. There's the jack up rig. I got to get rid of this picture, but that's it. The jack up part. Oh my God. All right, let's get back to the meeting. The break is over, and I'll continue sort of picking on my lunch here. I'm eating a little salmon and olives. This is what I'm just sort of just I'm just grazing, a little tea. So don't mind me while we get back to this. We'll watch it together.
Keeping it, maintaining, status quo, what we got there.
That's correct.
This is not changing any methodology or
Right. Yeah, okay.
City manager?
Just our annual renewal.
I just wanted to know what Chief Morgan was saying with the fire assessment. It definitely has helped. I know someone mentioned that we built the fire station for the Colony Club. Coming from the public safety side, that was an important strategic place to put that in the middle of our city limits to get from the east and west end and also have access to the highway instead of fighting traffic on Front Beach Road. So that is working, and that's a pool of money that can only be used for the fire department.
Understand. Board discussion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any other discussion? Hearing none. Ms. Fasoni, please call the roll.
Vice Mayor McConnell.
Yes, ma'am.
Councilman Jarman.
Yes, ma'am.
Councilman Casto.
Yes, ma'am.
Councilman Chester.
Ah, geez, this is the lawyer again. This guy, I mean, you got to forgive me, but I need to tell you, you know, what I believe. This guy is so slimy and condescending. He one time stood over me and yelled at me at a meeting, and I had to stand up and confront the guy. He told me to meet him outside. I followed this lawyer outside. He did apologize to me in front of everybody, but this guy, he's a piece of work. This lawyer here that's talking. So let's get back to him.
An effective date.
Mr. Lawson, anything to add?
Again, this is a resolution for an assessment you put in place a few years ago and validated, including the indexing procedure.
Carla, it's called the Stormwater Outfall. One word, outfall project. Stormwater Outfall Project. And tax, or assessment, as they call it.
I've already discussed it when I responded to some of the questions. It will continue to fund the at the same items in terms of what it funds. It and the fire both are only partially funding the costs of these programs. The rest is subsidized by the general fund. And so it is the same process as you used in the past, just like fire. It will be indexed just like fire, and I commend it for your consideration.
Mr. Campbell, anything you'd like to add? This item's available for board discussion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any other discussion? Ms. Fasoni, please call the roll.
Vice Mayor McConnell.
Yes, ma'am.
Councilman Jarman.
Yes, ma'am.
Councilman Casto.
Yes, ma'am.
Councilman Chester.
Yes, ma'am.
Mayor Sheldon.
Yes, ma'am. Item 7, Resolution 21-213, final nuisance abatement resolution, public hearing. Ms. Myers.
Resolution of the City Council of the City of Panama City Beach, Florida, relating to nuisance abatement within the city, confirming the initial assessment resolution, provide.
That's Amy Whiteout Myers and Cole Sun Davis. Those are the city attorneys. I'm not even going to. She gave a document to the FBI that had altered language in it. They altered a document and gave it to the FBI. She changed it. That's why I call her Whiteout, Amy Whiteout Myers.
Hearing none. Ms. Fasoni.
Vice Mayor McConnell.
Yes, ma'am.
Councilman Jarman.
Yes, ma'am.
Councilman Casto.
Yes, ma'am.
Councilman Chester.
Yes, ma'am.
Mayor Sheldon.
Yes, ma'am. Item 8 today is Resolution 21-214, annual stormwater management assessment, public hearing. Ms. Myers.
A resolution of the City Council of Panama City Beach, Florida, relating to the availability and funding of stormwater management and related capital services, facilities, and programs, including capital infrastructure and equipment within the city, providing for the imposition of special assessments within the city to fund in part the services, facilities, and programs associated with the continual readiness and maintenance of stormwater management services, facilities, and programs, identifying benefits, burdens, and costs to be assessed, establishing the method of apportioning benefits, burdens, and cost among specially benefited property, adopting an assessment role, providing the method of collection, providing for associated policy direction, and providing an effective date.
All right, Mr. Lawson, obviously we have a lot of elements here we need to address. Can you break it down and facilitate that discussion for us? Because we need consensus or straw votes on 3 elements, gentlemen. 1, does everyone agree that the new methodology being proposed? 2, what is the revenue stream we need to generate for this assessment program to carry out our capital programs? And 3, how do we want to handle exemptions? The proposed resolutions offer 3 discounts for mitigation, disabled homesteads, and for veterans for the next 12 years. It's a lot.
It is.
Well, I'll tell you, they absolutely have already made up their mind. They don't give a flip what you think about this. They really don't give a damn what you think about this. Back to the lawyer, this guy here. Listen how condescending he is.
But I know, and your staff knows, that there is a need to achieve a consensus. So my suggestions first is, let's start with the methodology. The methodology is new. It's what's contained in Dr. Veitch's report. And what Dr. Bletcher has indicated to you is, from a peer review standpoint, is more robust, likely more fair. What we didn't talk about today was, since you did your stormwater,
I don't think there's anything they wouldn't destroy if they could line their pockets. I swear to God. It's the same thing I see happening at a federal level. I mean, the short-term gain, and they no longer even pretend to care about what you think or even what is legal. They're at all levels. The government attitude now is, let's just do it. And we get away with it unless we're challenged in court. And if we're challenged in court, we might get a good favorable ruling and it'll drag out forever. That's their attitude. But the good news is these guys are being watched closer than they think they're being watched. Remember, they are under FBI investigation right now. So I want them to keep doing it. Keep doing all the shady stuff that you're doing. That's what we want right now.
and then at the end, I'd like the motion to include whatever you do, direction for you to sign the cleaned up resolution after approval by the manager and the attorney. That's typically how this type of stuff, you're legislating right now. Usually we have it done in advance, but you're doing it live, literally. So method first.
Let's have a discussion on methodology. From a straw vote standpoint, mindset, I know I agree with the new methodology. I think that taking some of the burden from single family residents and moving it across the board more. One rooftop for one condominium can have 300 residents. That one rooftop should not equate to as much as a single family home to me. Each should be its own address and each should have to pay its own fair share. That's my opinion. Therefore, I'm 100% in favor of the new methodology.
I agree 100%, and that's why I fought so hard to make sure that our previous assessment had that methodology in there. That was a big push to make sure that happened. So I love seeing that come into this one, so that the single family homes don't have a larger burden compared to the condos and the.
Your method now isn't wrong. And the Supreme Court said, you got to try your best. We've just realized by the comment I made just a minute ago is you got an inequity going on here.
Yeah.
You can solve that problem.
Right. So 100% with the methodology.
100% with methodology.
I'm good with the methodology.
Good methodology, good methodology.
I'm good with
I think we have a consensus on item 1 that everyone is good with the new methodology. So we can live stream yourself to number 2.
Very good. The net amount of the assessment. What we've dealt with here is we pull out what we call the uniform method collection costs. That's the $5 you have to pay to recover your costs, the money you have to pay to the tax collector to do the collection, which is, I think, around 2%. And then we, on all assessments, we gross up to allow for the discount, because on assessments, you don't have to give the discount, but if you use uniform method, you got to let the people who pay early.
Okay, remember that I'm streaming this live and watching it with you while I sort of eat, and sip on my tea. See, don't listen to people who say that I drink too much, because the truth is, if you haven't heard, I don't drink anymore. Now, I don't drink any less. That's the problem. But right now, it's just tea. But if these guys keep it up, we're going to be switching sooner than I thought. But I'm going to be getting up and throwing some of this stuff away. I'm just hanging out with you, but I got to get back to the lawyer because they're talking methodology, and you don't want to miss any of that.
The one thing I would point out to you that the mean and the average and the median are very low in that statistical array. So the good news is that means the median means that more than half of the parcels fall below that. The mean means that's the average, and they're very low in the array. So the good news is you're not the smaller properties, if you will, the lesser ones that have less improvement value are pretty much all down at the bottom. Yeah, you have some up high. We've given you the very high ones also. So the decision you have to make here is, and it doesn't have to be this number, we'll back figure however you want to, but you've got some choices. If you net fund $3 million, you have that sheet. I don't know how I help them make that decision the best way.
Well, Kelly can
Kelly.
help.
Yeah,
Can
Kelly.
help too.
Perfect. So, but this is a political business issue now. So if we can back into any number you want, because there's so many alternatives, you only can do so many. Once
Sure.
you come up to the number, we'll get the roll cleaned up and fix the resolution.
Perfect. Ms. Jenkins.
Thank you. There we go. All right, just want to run through a couple projects. When I started out looking at, what kind of funds I thought the stormwater fund would be adequate, I did add in a couple of extra items that I thought were important. I still do. I realize we need to keep the budget down. I understand that everyone wants to be fiscally responsible and do the right thing. Here's a couple of projects that we have on our capital improvement project plan that we experienced flooding. This is Gardenia Street drainage project. Another project that got mentioned earlier as a problem is Randy Road. These are all listed in the CIP plan. And an example of Colony Club, we have plans right now that we're doing, but if we don't get a certain dollar amount, we'll have a hard time funding these projects. So, and back here, the woman speaking about Oleander Court, this is something I think it would cost more, but being a steward of our funds, we're trying to do this in-house and work through that to make it a little bit cheaper. Bottom line for us was, look, we have to have the people to do the work. Things are growing. The city is growing. There's more storm drain to repair. We have equipment to buy. But to get these projects done that we know are problems, I was looking at, okay, I started with 4. That was too much. Bringing it down to 3, our budget looks better. So something I wanted you guys to consider as far as moving forward.
Perfect. Thank you. I think the mindset at one point was a wants versus needs, but obviously the more we see, the more we hear, it's absolute needs. It's not a want list, it's a needs list. And we have a community that needs more stormwater support. We rank for our citizen survey, which I'm really glad we did, because I love to refer back to that. We rank under 50% as a benchmark. We're at 43% rating from our community on our stormwater. So to me, you can't continue to do what you're doing and expect to get better. We're at 38% for taking care of our vulnerable. We'll get to that in the next one, number 3. But I think if we do nothing, I think if we keep it the same, we're going backwards. I think it's not fair to the community. And this new methodology really helps spread it out. You look at some subdivisions that we have out there, the Glades, we've spent over $1.2 million in stormwater funds for one neighborhood. I don't think it's fair not to take care of other neighborhoods when we have a neighborhood out there that's soaked up a lot of our resources. That's just how I feel. I don't think it's fair to folks on Oleander or Manistee or some of these other areas that absolutely need help. That's our job. We're elected to make those hard decisions. Nobody likes rate increases. The same rate increase applies to every one of us sitting up here if we go with it. So trust me, every number we talk about affects us the exact same way that it affects everyone. I understand everybody's on a fixed income. So is everybody working a job. I get it. Every income's fixed. No, money's not changing. So I completely understand everybody's concerns, but to me, we can't sit here and do the same thing and think we're doing the right thing for our citizens. To me, I'm 100% in favor of the $3 million. I was not in 4. We had our discussion. I am absolutely in favor of the $3 million so we can get done some of these projects. And the bigger side of that is we have gone out there and we've hired lobbyists to go fight for grants, to go get us grants. Well, the grants require support. They require a portion from us, a match. If we don't have to get to the level that Ms. Jenkins is asking for, if we don't get to that $3 million, we may as well just stop fighting for grants. We may as well stop going after big dollars because we don't have the funds to support the match. And to me, that's absolutely what we should do. It's the right thing to do. It's the right thing to do for our community. They've told us, based on the statistics, that we're not doing a good job. There's a chance for us to right or wrong, to me.
I know, I don't know at what number we will end up at, but I do know that I do not want this city to end up like some other cities where their infrastructure is falling apart because they haven't been able to maintain it. I think people are seeing that in other areas of the county, and I do not want to see that here. Like I said, I don't know what number we're going to end up with. I know grants was brought up by a nice lady, and as was mentioned, we need the matching funds for that. Otherwise, I don't want to slip backwards.
Vice Mayor. Okay. Council.
Ms. Jenkins, you mentioned the 3 million. Is that enough to do some of the projects and have matchable funds for grants,
Yes, sir.
but not all the projects?
I mean, we
Matching.
still have to phase them out. We can't do everything we want to do. We've
Right.
got our 5-year plan
So
and
we would prioritize possibly.
Yes.
And when we can leverage those funds, we will do it. And as you know, Kathy works very hard at getting
Yes,
the
she
grants,
does.
and we've
She
already been
does.
talking
Yes.
to people this week about different grants. So we are trying to leverage your money here and do the most we can with the dollars we're getting.
All right. Thank you.
One other thing I'd like to say is that if we do raise the stormwater assessment, then it is imperative that the residents see results.
And I think that's imperative. I think that's exactly Ms. Jenkins' plan,
Yeah.
is to go out there and do some of these capital projects so folks can get some relief. Folks that we're seeing these photos, it's bad
So
in spots. It really is. And you talk to these folks and it's a challenge. And it's not fair to residents as the building code has changed in these older neighborhoods. And I want to make it very clear, the new construction pays over the top for new construction. They're definitely paying their fair share. This really takes care of these old neighborhoods where, say there's a lot that's not ever been built on in your neighborhood on one street. Well, if that neighborhood's 20 years old, the building code has changed. That house now has to be built up higher. So therefore the water runs off. That water has to go somewhere. This gives us the ability to do the right thing in some of these older neighborhoods to make these adjustments that Ms. Jenkins has asked for.
Yeah, we just raised impact fees significantly.
Yes, sir.
The last couple of months ago, again, on new developments, they'll pay for this stuff. So
Correct.
we have been mindful of that.
Kelly, you showed us on the slides some of the project that you had on the front burner there. Can you briefly, I hate to put you on the spot, but you don't have to cover all of them since this has been put in place the last 10 years or so, some of the drainage problems that this fund has fixed in the city? Just roughly tell me a few of them.
Yes, I actually brought a list with me. We've done quite a bit, and we actually have used grant money too. And so we've done, as far as Gulf Highlands near Front Beach Road, we put in those culverts there. We've got almost $1 million for that. We've done the channel north of Ombre. We've done a lot of replacement pipe projects. There were some in the Sea Oats and the Bidawee area that we were able to help out because over time things got filled in and they used to not have a problem. They started to. We were able to do that. We did some extension of outfall.
Did I miss much? If you don't know, I'm just sort of hanging out with you, sipping my tea, but I'm switching to something else in a minute. That is Kelly Jenkins. She's the chief engineer. Okay, I'm going back to
Fund to get the
Yeah.
equipment, all
A
that.
lot of those projects have been on the radar for years. I mean, so it's not something that you fix all of them immediately.
Right. And I mean, we do have a stormwater master plan we've spent on engineering, but this stormwater does change over time, and so you do see newer problems. We try to head those off, and our developers that may not, enjoy our rules that we impose, they have to pay a lot of money to build in here. And it's not easy, and I hear about it a lot, but we're trying to have a balance.
City manager.
I just like,
Go ahead, Rich.
I just like to add to Kelly a little history on this. You guys, the council enacted this in 2006 with an agreement that we wouldn't raise rates for 5 years. We went 10 years without a rate increase. And during that time, it was mainly to buy equipment, build up her staff. Kelly has a small staff. A lot of people don't know that. She only has 6 people that work for stormwater. That's very small. But those 10 years, it was just to build up the manpower, the equipment. 2016, we did a small increase. 2018, we did another increase, but that strictly hit the condos. She's at a point now, instead of being reactive, she can be proactive with the $3 million. That's something she needs. She already cut the 4.4 down to 3. It's something that she needs besides public safety and traffic. As soon as it starts raining, my phone lights up or I get calls or people stop me because they're concerned about their flooding. I just wanted to give her a little history on that part.
Well, just to let you know where I'm at, Mayor, since we're doing a straw poll here for Mr. Lawson, we're in uncertain times right now, and our stormwater department is the only stormwater department in the whole county. I don't think any other city has a stormwater assessment program like we do. And Kelly and her staff does a great job, but at this time, I'm not for raising taxes on our residents during these uncertain times. I'm for keeping it flat. I'm not saying I won't increase it down the road, but I was for the change in the methodology, but I'm not for putting any more taxes on our residents at the current time. That's where I'm at.
It's almost like Councilman Castro read my notes. I do agree we have a lot of stormwater issues. We do have a lot of places that are flooding. We do need to be able to invest in the city. And there are a lot of people that want to see and look in our budget. And I'd love to have a sit down and show how a budget works and how we are restricted in the way that we spend things, including the stormwater assessment and every single assessment that's there. None of this just goes piling into a general fund for us to spend as we wish. So I'd love to have a sit down with anybody who's interested in that sort of thing. And we do have a funding issue in our recurring operating costs out in the out years that we're trying to manage right now. So this is difficult for me to say these things, as you know that I'm try to be proactive in my thought process for finances as well. However, I do live in that same realm as Councilman Casto, and I say in the year of a pandemic, in a year of people losing their jobs, in a year of people having difficulty generating income and living on unemployment, I don't think that this particular year is the year for us to be able to raise that tax. Maybe in the next years we recover, we get back going in this county. I think that's probably a better time to start looking at it. But for this year, I'm not for any increase.
What worries me, especially in going back to the grants, is, and someone had mentioned it earlier, or sent me an email. I try to read them all about, well, let's use the general fund. Well, the majority of our general fund is already spent on public safety. And that's the reality of what we're living in. I don't know if I'm on board with no increase at all. I think we can open ourselves up to some issues that, like I said before, we're seeing in other cities. But I'm quite willing to talk about what we want to fund and what we don't want to fund. And then everyone's just going to have to be okay with what gets done and what doesn't get done. So
Somebody made a statement earlier that said the forefathers' lack of planning and or the sins of the past have put us in positions that we're in. Those were quotes from earlier today. And I don't want us to be those people that are looking back at it 10 years. I don't want to look back and say the sins of this council didn't step up and do the right thing. And we know where we are. We know what's needed. I don't want to have to take another resident phone call whose house is flooded because we didn't want to do the right thing for the beach. That's just my opinion. And those statements hit me this morning. I wrote them down. Because to me, that's where I don't want to end up like another one of those areas. Because that is exactly what those folks are dealing with now. It was sins of the past because people didn't want to raise a fee. Well, there's never a good time. You know, you make statements about people have lost their job, they're on unemployment. There's a lot of people who are getting more unemployment now and they're not working. That's half the challenge is they're not working. So there's folks who are actually making more today than they made before. There's pros and cons, and there's a lot of statements that can be made to that. But I really look at us doing what's needed to be able to get the grant money. And if we're not, hey, if we want to keep it flat, then we might as well just go ahead and get rid of our, lobbyists, our federal lobbyists as well, because that's what we hire them to do, is to go get us money. And if we can't match what we're doing, it all sounds well and good. I don't want to raise it. But to me, that's just my opinion. I just don't think that's the right thing to do. I feel like the residents have spoken. And we did the survey for a reason. We wanted to know what the residents thought. And the residents think we're failing in this manner, and you hear the stories of people who we're failing for, then that's just not the right thing to do. We're moving backwards if we keep it flat, to me. I do not want to look back as one of the sins of the past.
I agree, Mayor. We need to do something. I think we need to do something to improve it. What that amount is, I think we need to discuss that.
Well,
Definitely not the 4. I did speak of the 3.
Would anyone be willing to split the difference, or?
well, 4 was off the table. I think we
Yeah.
came back from that. So all the letters that folks got, that's not the right amount anymore,
No, that's
essentially.
not.
That's off the table.
Three goes down by 38%.
Your letter goes down by essentially, 40%, 38%. So to me, I'm definitely in favor of the 3 because I want to have I want to have the grant match and I want to be able to do some of these. It's still not all the projects that are needed. It's some of the projects. And then we still have to forecast out, because I agree with you. We still have to forecast it out. We can't just go, we don't have it to spend it today. Again, this isn't a slush fund. We only can use the funds that are in this bucket. So we still have to plan, future plan. And I don't want to have to come back here next year and go, oh, we should have done it last year. That's the exact mistake I don't want to make, because we all know you don't want to have this conversation every year either. And this is our chance to do it right. And this is the chance to help the stormwater team, a small team of 6 individuals out there keeping us dry. I'm absolutely at $3 million.
I'm still flat. That's where I'm at. I don't want any increase.
It's like an auction. It's exactly what it is.
Yeah, it is.
It's just grinded sausage.
Everybody has their own thoughts,
Yeah, so-
you know, and everybody has their own reasons for their thoughts.
I agree. So you're flat.
Correct.
You're flat, Commissioner, Ms. Castro. So the mayor's at 3. Phil, Michael? I'm facilitating.
No, you're perfect. Good. 2.8? Kelly, would that help the situation?
Definitely help.
I mean, I want the money in there for our grants. Grants
Yes.
are huge. They're
I will tell you, the next item will be exemptions. It'll cost you about $200,000. That's a swag. So just be careful that as you negotiate this, you're going to have another issue in a few seconds.
Willing to go 2.8.
I'm willing to come down to 2.8.
Is that a motion?
Well, just a strong consensus at this. You at
That's-
2.8?
Yeah.
You're at
I
2.8?
can do 2.8.
3 of us at
Yeah,
2.8.
yeah. So now what you're doing, this is gentleman's agreement.
What they're doing is the eeny, meeny, miny, mo government. Politicians are the worst. They spend other people's money on other people for votes. In this case, for themselves too.
So here's the issue. Because you're switching your methodology, you don't have to deal mitigation credits anymore. You did that because that is tied to the pervious impervious approach. Give
Isn't it
credit to
amazing,
people
Eric?
who put in part of the system on their private property. That's
Eeny, meeny,
debatable whether
miny,
you have
mo.
to do it or not. Some
The
places
Goldilocks
do it.
form,
You begin
right?
to do it in one place. That, I think Kelly.
That's what it was, the Goldilocks form. Well, you know, it's a little too hot. It's not hot enough. I'm willing to make it right in the middle. Let's make it, these guys, unbelievable.
In other words, it's laborious. So the key is, if you want to get the efficiency, you can offload that. The other 2 exemptions that appeared over the years, which I wasn't involved with, were disability and veterans. And the state tax law lets those folks get discounts for their taxes. They don't pay county taxes. They don't pay your taxes because you don't have an ad valorem tax, but they're getting a discount for taxes already. I am the first person, well, I'm the second person right after the mayor, because he's pretty adamant about this. Veterans should be honored by every American citizen, period. I'm a big, big, big proponent. On the other hand, local governments aren't situated well to often subsidize that type of a tip of the hat. So me saying that, you've got three different types of exemptions, and then you've got a means to offer it up. The way we attempted to do that was to get all the exemptions to go away over a period of 12 years. So everybody has an exemption now, would continue to get it, and they would just stay until they stopped owning their property. When they stopped owning their property, the new buyer would get an exemption. That's a little bit of data work, but that can be done. That gets you out of the exemption business over a period of time. The suggestion, however, was to limit it for, I think it was $40 for mitigation, which is really more than most get, 40 for veterans and 40 for disabled. It's just a business decision now. How much does it cost? Like I said, this is a swag. I don't have exact numbers. We thought it would be around $60,000 to $80,000 using it that way. But if you give total exemptions, it could get a little bit more salty. So I guess the first question I would suggest to you is, so you know how much money you're spending for the future commissions. Are you going to get rid of it in 12 years? In other words, if I live in a house and I'm a veteran, I get an exempt, my exemption, whatever you give me, I get it for as long as I live there, or 12 years, whichever occurs sooner. In other words, you're telling everybody we're going to end this in 12 years. National statistics say most residential properties turn every 7 years. Just a thought. You want to start with that, Mayor, or do you want to start the other way around?
That's perfect. So
Okay.
for me, I am 100% steadfast that I have no desire to go back on our veterans and charge them anything. I don't like the 12-year plan. I think it's hokey. I think they're going to still see a bill that they've not seen in the past. I understand we don't do it for fire and CRA, and those are new. And those are different assessments. This assessment, again, has been around since 2006. And I agree with former Mayor Sullivan that says he'd be disheartened. It's the word he used. I would be disheartened as well if we went back against our military and our disabled folks in our community. I don't think they should pay in this instance, and I am willing to forego something else in the general fund that I can get with Holly on and we can agree on, because to me, going back on our veterans is a step backwards for our community.
And I want you to know, I don't care, because I've got to be like water, amoral here,
Sure.
okay? I already told you my proclivity, okay? But I'm not in your seat. So my question to the other four is,
As I care, yes, I'm with the mayor 100%. I'm
Okay.
not going back on the veterans or the disabled.
so the 12 years doesn't work for you either.
No, it does not. I'm
Okay.
100%.
The 12 years is hope. It's
I
a
don't know
partial
where
credit
that came
versus,
from, but-
you go from 0 to a number, you're going up. I don't like it.
No, you can set them at 0 if you want, just
That's
it
where
goes
the-
away in 12 years.
I-
Or when someone else buys their house.
I'm fine with it staying at 0 forever.
Are you going to expand it?
I'd keep it just how it is today,
So in other words, you're locked in, so a new veteran doesn't get the exemption,
where we are today,
right?
same way we are today.
So then my point is, why not
Wait.
have the 12 years so you finally get rid of them at some point in time?
Wait, did you just say that any new veteran would not get?
So if I move into Panama City next year and I'm a veteran, I'm going to ring you up and say, oh, you can't charge me because you said you wouldn't charge any of the veterans. That's a road you're going to have to cross. So I'm trying to be ahead of that. And what happens is you get a whole bunch of veterans that move here, then your revenue goes down.
This is a veteran-heavy community.
Huh?
This is a veteran-heavy community.
Yep.
And there's a lot of transients that come in and out as veterans come in and out with
Yeah.
jobs and with.
Of course.
With different
That's
Air
my
Force
point. This is
base
gonna be
and
expensive.
Navy base.
More
And
than
I'm
you know.
okay with the expensive, and I agree with the mayor 100%. You know, veterans issues is something that's critical to me and something I work on all the time.
Yeah.
And this is something we definitely need to keep, and I agree with the mayor. It should not have a 12-year deadline, and we should keep that at 0.
Okay, I can count. Sorry, Phil, Michael, you guys want to talk to the issue, but I hear you're going to give veterans exemptions 100%.
I got it. Yes.
Now, does it ever end?
When they sell the house, you can't have a non-veteran come into that parcel
Correct.
and
When the house sells,
But, okay, then what about a new veteran who moves into town in 2 years? Does he get the exemption?
yes.
yes.
All means.
If you're a veteran, we thank you. Welcome to Panama City Beach.
Amy, we will figure a way to do that. That will now be a data issue, and that may be something in lieu of struggling with mitigations, we'll have to figure out how to do, because you're going to have to get more data to do that. So the way I understand the straw pull on veterans is 100%
Yes, sir.
for residential homesteaded property. We're not talking about a veteran who owns a VBRO.
No.
Correct. Residential homes.
You got to have a homestead to get this.
Homestead,
Okay,
yes,
okay,
correct.
okay. That helps, okay?
Yes.
And it will go on until you or some other commission changes it, but you will set the precedent here, okay?
Yes, sir.
All right. There's a cost to that. We'll have to calculate.
That's what I've been doing for the past few minutes, in case you were wondering. So now you know the secrets in the Liberty Lounge. I switch up from salmon and tea to coffee. And by the way, the coffee is Anchored roast coffee. So it's my buddy Bill Davenport. He owns his own coffee company. And if you haven't, Bill, why don't you post the link? Anchored, because he's a Navy chief, a real Navy chief, Bill Davenport. Anchored Coffee and Roast LLC. If you want the best coffee, Bill, post it for everybody so they can get some, because as soon as this cools off, that's what I'll be doing. But not just coffee, because I don't just drink coffee. Who does that? Booyah. So anyway, I went from salmon to chocolate morsels. Quick as a mug. What did I miss? Let me take a look at what you guys are talking about here. Bill, post your coffee, because people are going to love it, as you know.
Or do you see if we have to go try?
The mitigation credit is 50?
Right now, the mitigation credits are all over the board, okay?
I think we're fine.
So I want to try to get a single, because I'm trying to make it easier for your staff and everybody else and for you to communicate to people. Okay, well, here's what we decided. Those people that already have mitigation, that have a homestead, we're going to set it at 50.
I'm okay.
Across the board.
I'm good. I'm good with.
That's a
with doing
simplicity
that,
thing.
Mark, that sounds.
No mitigation credit for anything that's
I'm good
other
with how it
than
is currently.
homestead.
Correct.
That is
Okay, so you're
correct.
not letting anybody who has a non-homestead or commercial get the mitigation anymore?
No.
No.
Okay. Amy, are you clear on this? I think I am.
The only on mitigation is.
All three are homestead.
Right, they maintain the discount until sale, though. That's
Yes,
not
that's right.
set by any
Yep.
That is correct.
2 years or
Right.
12 years, whichever.
No times.
Okay.
No time until, you're not,
Until they sell.
okay, so forever until they sell, not 12 years?
Right.
Of course, Bill meant Anchored Coffee and Roast.com. So don't copy and paste it, or you won't get there. You threw in a B where an end is supposed to be, Chief. So it's Anchored Coffee and Roast.com is where you can get the coffee.
Direct
Go
staff to
to-
revise our resolution.
To 2.8 net revenue, 2.8 million net revenue, and give exemptions for all disabled and veteran folks that qualify. Will find the statute where they qualify under the property.
Every single council member and every single department head gets $450 a month for car allowance. They all get $450 a month for car allowance. So what Miss Sarah Moon is saying is, if you're serious about it, show us. We're from Missouri. Show me state. Show us.
Make us
It's
a
one,
motion.
it's one resolution.
It's one what?
Resolution.
Well,
You
I
want to be on the
don't come
record?
across
You want to
it.
be on the record? You wouldn't vote for that. I think you're on the record. that you wouldn't-
I don't want to vote against the veterans and the.
Right.
The disabled, so if you're putting it all in one, it's gonna look like I'm voting against them. That's why.
We've
Oh.
done, that's why we've broken it up into these various elements so that you could agree with parts of it and disagree
Okay.
with parts of it. Now we're going to ask you to adopt one motion that sort of memorializes these independent straw votes you have just taken.
I can.
But I'm
I
not-
understand what you want to do. Here's
Yeah,
a-
I'm not for the 2.8 million increase in it, so I'm. gonna
And the
vote
record
against
has
that.
reflected that. That's a 3-2 vote.
But
And
here's
you're
what
not
I
on the
do.
side of
Let-
it. You're on the
Okay.
two side.
Mr. Mayor and
I'm on the
Amy,
record for that. I
Yes.
just want to make sure.
I think you could
It's
have the
one-
vote.
It's
On-
one resolution, but you're on the side of that straw. All the straw polls have been taken. So they've got all the
Okay.
notes on that. for
We
sure.
did a straw poll. We didn't take an official poll on.
Correct.
Official vote.
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
okay.
The one resolution will do everything at one time.
Well, but I guess my point, if you want to accommodate Councilman
Casto.
Casto, I'm struggling.
Yeah, that's all right.
I'm tired. I'm just kidding. If you want to accommodate, you could break it in two motions, but it's up to you. You're the moderators.
I'm going to defer to attorneys when they
That's
say
fine.
no.
That's not my,
One motion.
I'm doing the Michael Jackson
One
walk.
motion.
I'm walking away from that, okay? I'm just trying to facilitate. So
So essentially, we need a motion at 2.8 million net revenue with the exemptions for disabled veterans, 50 on mitigation and
the only people to apply are homestead.
And the methodology.
and the new methodology.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have all that?
And we'll measure it by what the property appraiser says with disabled vets and veterans. We don't need to argue with someone whether either you qualified over the property appraiser's office for it or you didn't.
We got you. We agree.
So you're not going to split it into two separate motions then?
One motion per.
One motion that memorializes those various straw points. So the methodology, you were 5-0. The revenue stream at 2.8 was a 3-2 vote with Michael, the mayor, and Phil on the 2.8, and Jeff and Paul at 1 point.
So that is, again, Amy Whiteout Myers. She is the city attorney that gave the FBI a document with an altered copy of a plat. I mean, she gave the FBI an altered document. They had to take words out and put new words in that looked like 1962 typewriter font, which is why she got the nickname Whiteout. Amy Whiteout Myers and Cole Son Davis, they're the city attorneys.
We could also put out a press release showing the stances on the straw ballot. So if you voted against the increase and you wanted it status quo at 1.8, you and Vice Mayor McConnell, we can have Debbie put something together for the.
I'm good with that. If you do that.
And I have a recommendation that they all review it before it goes out.
Yes.
Lesson learned.
Yes.
There's a motion available.
Please never forget the glib laughing and self-congratulations of these jackasses who are taxing the people more and going to tear up the Gulf of Mexico to dump stormwater from up north St. Joe projects and developments. Please never forget them.
All right. Let's see. Motion to set the stormwater fund at 2.8 million, having exemptions for homesteaded veterans and disabled, continuing at zero.
You don't need to recite
Okay,
all of the elements.
That's good. And then including a 50 mitigation, continuing the 50 mitigate or installing a 50 mitigation credit of existing homesteaded homes until sold in mitigation areas.
Approving the methodology.
Approving well, I got stuck on this. Approving the methodology proposed for the stormwater assessment.
Is everyone clear?
That's what I'm looking at you for. Is that good?
You're approving the methodology. You're approving a 2.8 revenue stream. You're approving discounts for mitigation at $50 for homestead only. 100% exemptions for disabled and veterans who are homesteaded as determined by the property appraiser forever.
Just as a point, Councilman Jarman did say 2.4 million, so I want to make sure that that's
I
revised.
said 2.8.
If you're accurate, you did.
2.8.
That's
2.8.
Oh, okay.
Well,
Motion.
I understand.
That's sleight of hand.
We have a,
right, right.
right. We have a motion
Big
on,
conspiracy theories.
we have a motion on the table.
Second.
Any other discussion? Ms. Fasoni, please call the roll.
Vice Mayor McConnell,
No, ma'am.
Councilman Jarman,
Yes, ma'am.
Councilman Casto,
No, ma'am.
Councilman Chester,
Yes, ma'am.
Mayor Sheldon.
Yes, ma'am. Moving on. Item number 9 today is Resolution 21-215, Emergency Wastewater Power Cable Replacement Ratification. Ms. Myers.
A resolution of the City of Panama City Beach, Florida, ratifying and approving an agreement with Wise Services, Inc. for the emergency purchase of power feeder cable replacement for the city's wastewater treatment system in the not-to-exceed amount of $65,000.
At this time, we will open up number 9 for public comment. Any public comment on item number 9? Seeing none, we'll close that. Mr. Schaefer, anything you wish to add? City
This was
manager.
caused from the tropical storm Fred week Monday. Transformer was caught on fire. The fire department did a good job putting it out, but it fried off our wires going back to the wastewater treatment plant. We had to activate the generators for over a week. We fell under the emergency protocol. We got 3 quotes. Mark did a good job on that. And we had it back on shore power Tuesday morning.
Good job.
Good job. Glad nobody was hurt in this situation. That's for sure.
Yes. Motion to approve.
Second.
Ms. Fasani, please call the roll.
Vice Mayor McConnell,
Yes, ma'am.
Councilman German,
Yes, ma'am.
Councilman Casto,
Yes, ma'am.
Councilman Chester.
Yes, ma'am.
Mayor Shelton.
Yes, ma'am. Item number 10 today is a motion to rescind council's August 9th, 2021 action concerning renewal of residential garbage franchise. Ms. Meyer.
I would give the floor to Mr. Jarman, who wishes to make the
Okay.
motion and open it up.
So I realize that what I am initiating today is not a very common practice. I have an obligation to do what I believe is right for the residents of the city. During the advisability hearing, we heard that we should just leave things as they were and that there would be no benefit to putting trash service out for bid. That
So Ken Nelson, what he's talking about here, Ken Nelson is a local treasure. Ken Nelson is a former city council member. And I'm talking 8 years. He knows his stuff. He went and spoke today. But get a load of this. When Ken Nelson went up to speak earlier today, as soon as he mentioned in the beginning $21 million that the city got from the government, the feed cut off. So we didn't hear what Ken Nelson had to say to this morning until at the very end of his comments. All of a sudden, you could hear him again. That's what Ken Nelson's talking about there. So, Ken, what I think we should do, if you're up for it, because everybody's wondering what you had to say that the city cut off in its live feed. Maybe we have you come on the show and we can do it. Hell, you can come in the studio or we can do it, how I've been doing it. But I want to know what you had to say, Ken, that they're afraid to hear. All right, back to the council.
to have true bargaining power through the economy of scale. Whatever the result is today, I'm confident that my actions are in the best interest of the residents, and that is all I can ever strive to accomplish. So, with that being said, I make a motion to rescind the action that was taken on August 9th, 2021 in the council's advisability hearing concerning the solid waste collection franchise agreement.
Mike Jarman is rescinding his motion from last week. So somebody probably got a hold of him. He just rescinded his motion from last meeting. Ken Nelson, you know more about this.
I'll second that motion.
Wow.
Any further discussion?
Nobody seconded it, so the mayor
Yes,
passed
I'm
the
still
gavel
where
to
I was
second
at
the
in
motion. Wow.
public hearing
This
we
should
had 2
fail.
weeks ago. I've heard, been hearing that a couple of haulers had sold out.
Nobody would second that motion.
And Mr. Trash, and should be seeing a reduction of less trucks on the road, and I'm just right now think there's not a problem. We went to mandatory trash a year or so ago, and that was,
Yeah, I think it
in my
is.
opinion, solved the problem. And I think these competitors will buy each other out. At the end of the day, you'll end up with 1 or 2 haulers. And right now, I'm still where I was at, trying to be consistent. I think the customers have a choice today. If they don't like the service, they can switch, and that's where I'm at with it.
Mayor?
Yeah, I'm still at where I'm at. I was outvoted 1-4 on this. And
So
I'm
they got a
still
hold
where I
of
am because
Jarman.
I feel it's the right thing to do. It's less vehicles on the road.
Wow.
It's what the public has asked us to do. So sometimes you got to speak up for the people who aren't in the room. And I feel like today that's what I'm very blown away. Honestly, Councilman Jarman, I'm proud to sit up here with you right now.
He's
It's
very
less
blown
traffic.
away,
It's
honestly.
heavy trucks. It's a big move. And we know it's the right move. We know it's exactly what the citizens have asked for.
Yeah, Oh, yeah.
Almost 60% of our citizens say it. And there's a reason HOAs do it. I said it last time, I'll say it again. HOAs do it because it's better for their neighborhoods and it's better for the price. We know price is going to come down and we know it's what's been asked for.
Most dishonest guy I've ever
That's what the
seen.
Residents voted us to do, is to make these decisions. I'm in the same exact spot.
Councilman Chester.
I voted no, and I'm sticking with it. I'll stay there.
For Phil.
I think it would put a lot back on the city. You hear complaints. Bottom line, who
Wow.
are they going to call? They're going to call the city. Billing. We'll be doing that also. So I
Look at Phil hold his ground.
same spot. No.
Yeah, I've received no new information in the last few weeks since we've had that vote that would make me change my mind in a considerable manner.
So it's going to be up to Casto.
As Councilman Castro talked about, numerous things that are kind of in the works to kind of naturally bring down some of those numbers and those haulers in that area. And I'd like to see that kind of continue and play out over the next couple of years before we make a move to ensure that there are only a couple of haulers over here on the beach. I'd like to see that play out and see where it ends up. So my vote is still the same as it was.
It's up to Paul Casto.
I hope it happens in 2 years.
Oh, Casto's a no.
Yeah,
We have a
you need a
motion.
vote. You got a second, you need a vote.
Yes, sir. Hold on. Call the roll.
Thank you. Vice Mayor McConnell,
No, ma'am.
Councilman Jarman,
Yes, ma'am.
Councilman Casto,
No, ma'am.
Councilman Chester,
No, ma'am.
Wow.
Mayor Sheldon.
Yes, ma'am. Moving on.
Oh, Sheldon's pissed. Wow. Jarman came back and tried to save him. And even mini money mover McConnell, even the mini money mover didn't go along with it. Woo! I'll tell you what that tells me. Very, very likely this is being looked at too closely by the feds. And people like McConnell and Phil Chester, especially those two, I can't tell you why yet, but especially those two, they better walk the straight and narrow. And they did.
Also saying down on the west end towards Argonaut, they're going to try to shade the traffic lights so it doesn't look like a thoroughfare. They just wanted our permission to go ahead with that project. You guys are good with that. And another thing I wanted to bring up is Tropical Storm Fred was here a week ago Monday. I want to just compliment our men and women that are out there working, public safety, utilities, our street department were out there. I just want to thank the city for doing a great job. Stormwater, everybody was out there. Corky did a great job with his crew. So I just want to thank the city staff for that. Men and women that are out there battling the weather.
That is the former police chief right there, Drew Whitman, who they made the new city manager. And that was decided about a month before. It was right when they fired the last city manager, who was a great city manager, Tony O'Rourke. I like Chief Drew Whitman, but I don't think he's qualified to be a city manager. I mean, God bless him, fellow veteran, all of it. But he doesn't have a high school diploma. He didn't graduate high school. And I think that, look, I know a lot of people who didn't, who are the most moral people I know, smart people, qualified people, all of it. But the reason there's another person up there is because they needed Holly White to really be the city manager. She's the assistant city manager. So they traded Tony O'Rourke for two people. They were overpaying Tony O'Rourke, who I like. They were paying him $170,000 a year. Now they have two city managers. Drew makes $150,000. She makes $145,000. She went from $95,000 to $140,000 or so. She got a $45,000 raise. So they traded Tony O'Rourke at $170,000 a year for these two for nearly $300,000 a year. Because Holly White, she's been there for a long time. She really knows how to do the stuff that a city manager would do. Anyway, those are your two city managers now.
That is a local can buy their permit, download the app, pay a yearly fee of, we haven't come up with a fee. The last one was about $245 for the have access. But we do have 3 parking lots that are open to the public that can park there anytime.
High school.
That sums it up for me.
Right.
Thank you.
City Attorney.
No report.
Councilman Casta.
I'm good, Mayor.
Councilman Chester.
Good, Mayor.
Councilman Jarman,
Good.
Vice Mayor.
Here. For the folks that are talking about the pedestrian crossing going over 98 or tunnels under 98 or Middle Beach or Front Beach prior to the city conducting CRA, I want to remind you that those are state roads that we can't directly fund or directly impact. Indirectly, we can do that. I welcome you to go to the TPO meetings, the Transportation Planning Organization. Councilman Jarman is a member of that. I've been a member of that for my entirety here. Unfortunately, we are only 2 votes. Panama City has 5, Bay County has 5, and the other municipalities have 2 as well. So it's.
I got to say something right now. The transportation, what is it? The TPO transportation. What does it stand for, Miss Sarah Moon? She'll know. She's the brains behind the outfit. I'm going to tell you something. The investigation, the big federal investigation, has expanded to transportation corruption. And the fact that Jeff McConnell was on the TPO and Hector Solis and George Gaynor, the state senator, is on the Transportation Committee and the Transportation Appropriations Committee. Listen, the roads, building the roads scams that have been going on in Bay County. Yeah, the transportation planning, but what's the O stand for? TPO planning. Anyway, yeah, this is going to get so good. It may take a little time, but remember, the mills of the gods grind slowly, but ever so fine. Thank you, Miss Sarah Moon. You just listen to her. All right? And then you'll be okay. How do I know? Because she tells me every day.
Abused over the last
Is she laughing?
week. Mr. Bailey came in, Drew, and I've known Mr. Bailey for a while. When he had this issue, I went over to his house, looked at the issues, saw what the problems were, came back and talked to staff. This was prior to your coming on board as the city manager, talked to staff to try to see what happened and see what it resolved. I'd like staff to reach out.
They voted to take away the requirement of a master's degree, Kurt. And, I said that Drew didn't graduate high school. I think that's true, but he might have a high school diploma, but that's all though. That's all. And again, this is not to put him down. I like Drew Whitman. I think he was a good police chief. Okay. I think he had a lot of pressure put on him. We could do a lot worse, but he is not qualified. And we know this because they brought in Holly White to do it, really, to be the police chief. But they changed the requirements, Kurt, so that they could bring him in because they do trust him. But I'm holding out judgment until this whole investigation plays out and the dust settles. There might be some other reasons that we haven't considered.
On the 31st of May, it was 19.75 million gallons per day. So I'll see everybody doing the math in their head. That's about 63.9% of our rated capacity. So we've got 37% or so. On the wastewater side, our permitted capacity is 14 million gallons per day. The reason is different is because people use water for watering and firefighting and so forth. Not all of it gets returned to us as sewage. Our peak day for this year, which was higher than the same period last year, was the month of July. Our peak month was the month of July, and it was 11 million gallons per day. It was just under about 10.977 to be exact. So with our monthly capacity of 14 million and a flow of 10.977, that's about 78.4% capacity. The DEP has certain thresholds that they have in terms of planning and when you should start construction for expansion of your plant. The one that applies to us, if in the next 5 years your capacity is going to be equaled or exceeded, you need to be in the preliminary planning phase and design phase. At 3% growth, which is where we've been averaging, and there's been some ups and downs, but on average it's been pretty close to 3%. Even in 5 years, we would be at 12.73 million gallons per day, or about 90.9% capacity. So still below the trigger on when we needed to start the planning process, but the city's already ahead of the game. We've started the planning process. We purchased the property for the new plant there in the industrial park. So, it's tracking along. The balance you have to strike is you don't want to jump too quickly. If demand stops and development stops, you end up with all the construction costs and the O&M costs of a facility that's not being used. So you have to balance that timing so that you try to hit it right.
Thank you.
We're
Okay.
thinking impact fees, so the residents don't pay for that
Yes,
big, expensive new wastewater plant. and
exactly. Yeah.
Water plant. and all
The
that.
old
So How
premises.
much you got in, do you know right offhand how much we got in impact fees for utilities, Holly?
Exactly. I think it's in the $25 million range.
Okay. So we're sitting in good shape. Yeah, okay. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
And the other question, Mark, if I could, the Jonah Avenue lift station, I've received quite a few comments and issues about the Jonah Avenue lift station. Are we having issues over there? There's a lot of people claiming we're having a lot of problems over there. Sewage is going all over the place, blah, blah, blah.
We haven't had any spills. We did have some pumps that are starting to collect debris and they're due for rebuilds, but we try to get right through storm season.
I want to invite you to, this also airs live on YouTube. And I haven't been, a big YouTube guy over the years, but I'm trying to grow my YouTube channel so that if anything happens, you'll have another option, right? And I'm trying to grow others as well. So if you would be so kind, and it really matters to me, if you would subscribe to YouTube, my YouTube channel, The Bernie Thompson Show, it would be a big deal to me. So I hope that you'll do that. And also, if you want to support my efforts, you can become a patron at patreon.com. That's it right there, patreon.com/Bernie Thompson. It's kind of like a tip. And it's like you can do $5 a month. And it matters a lot to me when you become a Patreon. And it is anonymous, by the way, anonymous. And the 14th Circuit Court of Appeals, the 14th Circuit here in Bay County has upheld that because they tried to find out who my patrons were. And Hector Solis was denied by James Judge Fensom, of all people. So it is anonymous, it is easy, and you can quit at any time. But it matters a lot if you become a patron. Patreon.com/Bernie Thompson. And again, YouTube. And I hope that you'll share what we're doing. I'm just sort of hanging out with you while this long meeting continues on.
Thanks. Meeting's finally adjourned.
Right when I said that, it's ended. Right. Thank goodness. Whew, I'm tired of that meeting. I'm out of here. What a day. I'm going to share with you the comments I made this morning to Vice Mayor McConnell. The poor dude was just mortified, and he has every reason to be. All right, I'm just going to sign right off, and I will talk to you soon. Thank you so much for hanging with me and for participating and for giving a damn. I'll talk to you soon.